Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop, and welcome to what could be the penultimate issue of the Mallard. So I've got 2 issues here, and if I do 2 issues next week, that will be the Mallard done. So 128, 127 here, and there's not really a great deal of parts. We've got 1 fret of parts, and we've got a couple of parts with 127. So not a great deal, it looks like. I haven't actually flicked through the magazine too much to actually work out how much detail is required for this. But we've obviously seen that before, where you get very few parts and then it takes ages to actually get it done. But let's get into it. Let's get building.
Welcome to the workshop, tools in the light, screws and glue, they're holding it tight. Piece by piece, it's a builder's delight, making dreams in the still of the night. Let's get into it, let's get building now. Put it all together, I'll show you how. Screw by screw and a little glue too. Welcome to the workshop, it's waiting for you.
Right, so here we are at what could be, and what hopefully is, the penultimate episode of the Mallard. So as I said, I've got 127, 128 here, and I'll show you through both magazines now. But we've only got this sprue of parts and these 2 parts, or 3 parts. So it doesn't look like it to be a great deal. So let's have a look at what we're actually doing. So 127, we've got these 3 parts. Small injector, large injector pipe, and large injector. We need to get brake hose bracket, locomotive body, locomotive chassis, spring for brake hose, and front coupling. So it looks like we're drilling some holes in those parts we've got. We need the brake hose bracket from issue 56. Locomotive body from issue 117, spring brake hose from issue 124, and the front coupling from issue 126, which we worked on last time. So it looks like we're putting the coupling in. Extra feed and brake hose bracket. Now, I think I've actually already fitted that. I wasn't meant to, but I think I already got fitted that one. Although I think we were told to test fit it. No, actually, it's something else. There's that one actually. I've done that one, not done that one. I have to see if I can find that because I haven't seen it floating around, but we shall find out. And then I think the rest of this is just getting the chassis ready for the motor. Now, I don't need to do any of that, so none of that is relevant. This was Mallard's story. This was at the Great Gathering, which I actually went to. So I've stood on the footplate of all of these surviving A4s. So really, really good that. And then we've also got classic locomotives. And then in 128, we have reversing rod link, reversing rod inner section, reversing rod outer section, reversing rod detail plate, reversing rod support bracket, right hand, left hand cylinder drain cock pipes, right hand, left hand cylinder drain cock pipe. So we've got 4 of those, 6 of those. Got inner and outer, that's what they are. Injected mounting bracket, reversing rod support bracket, or support bracket rib. And it looks like we've got a split pin and a spring. I haven't seen those, so maybe they're... still in the packet. That's why you don't just chuck these away. So what we're doing this time, bending a couple of bits, put them on the back of the chassis. That's where we're putting the injector pipes, so they're all in one piece. That goes in there. We've got some wire to bend, it looks like. A couple of bits to glue together. Got a support rod going in. I guess that's the reverse rod. And then we've got a few more wires, it looks like, to do. So it looks like it might be a slightly fiddly episode, but as you can see, it's then ready for painting. We've got Britain's Railways, and that's it. So full set of instructions and very little extra. Right, so as you can see, I've split the body from the chassis. It's only ever placed on there gently. And I'll probably still store it like that because we're going to be putting bits on here that's going to protrude from the bottom. So obviously, as soon as I put that down like that, it's going to break. Now, advice is put it on its side, whereas I will probably just put it back on top of the chassis, just because it's a little bit more convenient. Just going to put that there for the moment. What we are going to turn our attention to first are these bits. I did find that brake hose assembly. It came with issue 56, and I still had it left on the sprue. Now, so finding that is much easier than finding just that little part. So I'm still going to say it. I've said it many times on this series that if you're not using the part, leave it on the sprue. It's so much easier to find, especially if you go back to, because I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. I went back to issue 56, and as soon as I saw it was on a gold sprue, I knew exactly where to look for it. So, yeah, keep things on the sprue. You're going to find it's much easier to find things. Right, I'm going to put that to one side because we don't need that just yet, but we do need these parts. And we're going to start off with this piece, so the larger of the injectors, I guess. We just need to drill a hole in here. It's a 1.6mm drill bit, and it's basically going to accept this pipe. You can see it's been narrowed on one end there. So we need this to be about 3mm deep. Obviously, if you don't go that deep, you can just cut the end off that a little bit. So I'm trying to get this as straight as possible as well. Right, so that's now going to fit in there really nicely, and as you can see, quite snugly as well. Let's try and make sure that we glue this in the right position, which looks to be, if we have it this way up, that's going to go off in that direction like so. So just going to glue that in place. So just to dip the end of this in some glue, and we can push that in place. So that's looking like that. Now I do have some more holes to drill in this, and it might have been easier to do that before gluing that in place, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to step away from our 1.6, and then we're going to use a 1.1mm drill bit. Which I have here. And it looks like we've got to do 9 holes in total at 1.1mm. Now I'll show you where they are, but I'm not going to make you watch me drill 9 holes. They all need to go to about 1.75mm. And they are going to be one here, one here, one here. So there's 3 on this piece. In fact, actually, they're showing us 3 on one picture, which are those 3 that I've just shown you. And then we need to flip it over this way, and there's another one there, and another one there. That makes a total of 5 in this piece. And then we have this piece. So this would be 6, 7, 8. And just trying to work it out, I think 9 at the end here. So plenty of holes to drill. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll show you what that's like in a minute. Right, so with all 9 of those holes now drilled out, we can put them to one side. So we're not touching those right now. I think for the rest of this issue, we'll revisit those at the next in the next issue. But right now, we want the engine body. Now, what we're going to be doing with the engine body is, you remember last time we created this coupling with the shorter and filed down part there. We're actually going to be fitting that to the engine. Now, that will slot nicely into there like so. Now, we do have this other pipe to fit. So what I'm actually going to do is probably put that on last, because that's going to be a nice easy thing. And I'll see that's going to flap around a little bit, moving the engine around. So what we need to do with this part is, one, cut it off the sprue. Now I'll just clean up the end of that. Right, so I've just double checked that this spring has a good enough opening for this, and I've cleaned up the end of this, so that will now sit in there like so. So leave that for one moment. What we need to do is just trim off the excess of this. So that's this piece just here. So we've now got that just L-shaped now. We basically need to drill a small hole in the epoxy that we've got here, just so that that will sit about there. It looks like it's just probably where that black part is. So we need it about there. So just need to drill a 1mm hole in there. Obviously, we have a beautifully painted body now, so we need to be careful of how we're treating that. So I'm just going to very gently put it down like so, and find a 1mm drill bit, and I'll get that hole drilled. Right, so with that hole now drilled, it doesn't have to be very deep. I did a test fit of this piece, so as you can see, it just sits in like so. I'm just going to put some glue on the end of this. And we get that glued in place. Now, I might put a little bit of resin on there just to give it a little bit more substance to adhere to. But for right now, the super glue should hold that in place. And with that in place, what I'm going to do now is I will put the coupling in place. Obviously ensuring it's the correct way up, which is going to be that way. And I think all I'm going to do is just dip that coupling into some glue, get that slid in there, because I haven't actually gone all the way through here. I don't know if we were told to go all the way through or not, but I didn't. And as you can see, that fits in there perfectly. So just making sure that it's actually straight. And we have our coupling in place. Looking just like that. Now, last thing we need to do is we do need to attach the spring to this and to here. And that's just going to go like so. Now, as I said, that, as you can see, that's quite loose. So I won't do that just yet, but that's basically what I need to do. But I will put some epoxy resin on there just to make sure that's really solid in there. And then I'll be gluing the spring across those two parts there, just like we did with the rear of the tender. Now, that has made me remember that I haven't shown you the tender yet. Now, obviously, last time I said that I was still ready to gloss it. Well, now it's had a glossy coat. So it's looking just like that. And you can see we've got the springs on there, same as we did, same as we're going to do for that one. But that is what that is looking like. Pretty much the next step for this is going to be put coal in it, and that was the last step of 126. Obviously, I haven't done that, and I'm probably not going to do that until the engine's pretty much finished. So that is it for the tender for the moment, until we're probably putting the wheels on it. Right, so with the body, that's actually all there is to do in stage 127, because the other part of the issue is basically just the preparing the chassis for the motor, which obviously I'm not going to do. So I'm just going to put the body up on the shelf. Right, so this is the parts we got with 128. First thing we're going to do is get our 1mm drill bit and just drill out a few holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all need to be 1mm in diameter. Right, and with those done at 1mm, we need to do these two at 2.1mm. So just get those done. So 1, and 2. So with all those holes drilled out, we're good to go for the next step, which I believe we need these two parts. Now what we're going to do, we're doing a couple of little bends on these parts. And probably do it, just taking a little bit more off there. That looks better. And quite simply, they're going to bend this way so that the detail is also facing outwards, like that. And then these two ends, they're going to bend 90 degrees down this way. So we have something that looks like that. And do the same thing for this one. Again, just making sure that the detail is visible on this side. And then just going to line up the pliers with the bend mark and bend it down. And same with this one. So we have that looking like that. Now these are going to fit just where we've got the marks on the chassis here. And they're going to fit in this orientation. And up. They're going to both face the same way actually, that's where I was getting confused. So one will go on here and face that way. And then this one will go on here and face off that way. So I'm just going to expose a bit of the metalwork so we're not gluing it direct to the paint. And it's just going to sit there. So I just dipped it in some glue. And get that positioned. The same for this one. Now it is going into the lines that are here. That'll help position it. So that's those two in there like so. Now I need to take these two parts, and this one will go here, and it'll go this way around and sit in like so. And then we have this one, which is going to sit in here, and it's going to sit like that. So just ensuring that that is all glued into place. Just going to do a test fit on this one again, just make sure it goes in where I expect it to, which is going to be just there, I believe. Might even go a little bit further over, so where this pipe comes out, that's pretty much in line with this piece. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue on there, and on there, and on the back of this bracket. And then hopefully just get that one site in place. Now, by next week when you see this, I would have probably painted up all the black bits that are not currently black. So I'll paint off all the ancillary bits, but you can see how few ancillary bits we've actually put on that actually need painting black. So I think painting the chassis black when I did it, I think was the right idea. And it means not having to take off all of this valve gear. So I think it makes sense, but we shall see as we progress. Right, we now need some 1mm wire. Now, I think I've got some more of this because I don't think this is going to be enough. And we're basically just going to be putting some pipework in on the back end here. Right, so I'm going to start off with this one. So this hole here, the pipe's going to come down, up, round, and make a sort of like a U shape and come out here. So just make an initial bend downwards. Now, I have no diagrams or measurements for doing this, so it is just a little bit of guesswork. And what I'll probably end up doing is just making all these pipes and then showing you how I've shaped them and where they go. So I'll back with you in just a moment. Right, I've cut various pipes, as you can see, multiple different shapes. I think I'm still need to do one on this one, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to run at the minute. But basically, as you can see, they're all various different shapes, and I've just sort of tried to make them as best I can. The picture is not very clear at all. So this sort of L-shaped one, that's going to slot in there and go up into the chassis, sort of like that. That'll go from that one. We have this little angled, like swan angled bracket. Now if I take that one out of the way so it's not in the way, that's going to go through here. It's going to go round this bar that comes across the back here. That's going to go into there, and then eventually what's going to happen is we've got these two very small brackets, and that's going to secure that one in place. So that goes there. Hopefully showing you like this means you can actually see roughly where they're going, and then I'll put them all in place. We have this one here, and that's the one that's going to sit on the edge here like that and pop out this way. And then this one, I've actually forgotten where it goes. Oh, this one, on the top of this, or bottom as you're looking at it in a minute, that basically sits there. And it will go up into the chassis again. Now, I think there's a fifth one of this, which again, there's another opening here, and I think that's just going to be a straight pipe that goes up into the chassis and sort of gets hidden. So that's those 4 pipes, wherever the other one has gone. There. And then we've got these 4. This one is going to sit just here and go into that hole there. and sit on top of that plate. We have this one here, and that's going to go in a similar position as the one next to it, which is going to sit like this on this plate and go into the end of that hole, like so. And that's going to get, again, secured by the little tiny brackets. And then these two, they simply just go down into the chassis, or up into the chassis. So one goes there, and it just disappears off up. And then this one does the same thing, and that's going to go into the hole at the top of this, or say as you're looking at it from the bottom. So that's where those are going to go. So I'm going to get all those glued in, and I'll show you what that's like in just a minute. Right, so I've managed to get all those pipes in there. Now, there was really no point in filming it because I could barely see what I was doing, let alone trying to get a camera to show you what I was doing. But hopefully explaining where all the pipes were going and what they were doing has helped quite a bit. But as you can see, we've got all the pipes in there, and now they probably just look a complete mess to you because you can't really tell where they're going. And to be fair, the picture didn't help either. The only ones that were really clear was this one here and this one here, and the ones that come out over the top here. All the others pretty much just disappear into the chassis, and as you can see, you can hardly see them. You can only see these four. So if you're doing them, it's these four that are really the important ones, I think. I think we're going to put some tubing on that, and that was attached to the tender. But that's where we are at the moment. So that's all that pipe work done. The glue's still setting on that, and now we need to turn our attention back to these parts. And we need the two of these, and it looks like we're sandwiching them together. So what we're going to be doing is just putting those on top of each other like so. And we just need to glue them together. Now, I will use a bit of the 1mm wire. Right, so I'm just going to use a bit of this 1mm wire and put those on there like that. Now, that's going to help glue this together and make sure that they are even. Now, we will eventually be putting some 1mm wire through there. So it's not probably going to be the end of the world if this ends up gluing to it, but all I'm going to do is just tack it at the back here. And that will probably be enough to hold those together, like so. Now, what I'll do is I'll dress the sides of these a little bit better and clean it all up in one piece. I'm just going to let that dry off for a second. And whilst that is drying, we're going to assemble our reversing rod. Right, so we've got these two parts. We've got the inner and the outer. The outer looks like it's got this little notch on the end, and the inner doesn't. We do have this little piece here which will line up, I guess. Now, I don't actually know which way around these go, so I'm just going to try and work that out. Right, so my assumption is that's the inner one, that's the outer one with this little notch on the end. I believe it's going to go this way up. Now, there's no reference to this little notch at all that I can see. So I am purely guessing which way up this is because there's no clear picture, unfortunately. The only thing it does give us a clear picture of is this end, where we have these two parts here. I'm basically going to be attaching those like that, and then that's going to go onto there, like that. So we're going to end up with something that looks like that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go with this way around, and that little notch is going to be facing upwards. Now, as those are drying, I'm going to use the 1mm wire again and just ensure these are lined up as well. So a couple of cuts of wire just to hold those and line it up, and then just going to run some glue along the edge here, which will start tacking it in place. And then we'll just give that a couple of minutes to cure. Now, whilst that's curing, we do need to drill a hole out inside of our chassis. Now, at the minute, there isn't a dimple or anything, or a mark or anything, and I'm pretty sure the paint's not deep enough to cover that. But the instructions look like it's drilling just above here. So that's probably where I'm going to be doing it as well. And that's probably going to set something like that, I think. Yeah, so that's how it's going to go. And I have just noticed there is one single picture where you can just about see this, and this is the right way up. So I'm going to use that as a bit of a measure. And I reckon with that in line with that, I'm pretty sure this is going to go something like this. I'm going to put the hole just here, I think. Right, so now we've got all of this all glued up. I'm just going to tidy up the edges. I'm not going to go down the whole lot, just where it was in the sprue. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach these two parts together. And that's going to go onto there like so. Looks like that's going to go behind the reversing rod. So a bit of 1mm wire, another bit of 1mm wire there. Now we're told that we don't need to glue this at the moment, and just basically to trim and dress the ends of the wire. So I'm just going to take my file. Now I can't see that this will stay together at all if we're not gluing this. So that's trimmed and dressed. Might need to trim it a little bit further at some point in the future. As you can see, that's not going to stay on there. We're going to tip the engine back on its side, or it's on its top, I guess, or the right way up. And it looks like we're just going to basically position this in place. So that's going to go onto that rod there that we've got temporary in place. That's going to sit over the top of those two parts there. And then obviously that's going to line up with that piece. Now I think that actually needs to come up like this. Right, so what we need to do is we need actually are just positioning this. So if I just put a bit of 1mm piece of rod in there, so that that lines up with that hole. Right, so we've got that lined up there. We then align this piece. Right, so we've got this lined up. That's in there. Hopefully you can see just about on the top camera, or maybe on the side camera. So we've got this aligned along here. That's in the right place. That's in the right place, and they're all set. What we're going to be doing is gluing just this joint, nothing else. And that will basically just set that in that position. So I'm just going to touch a bit of glue on the top of that joint. And that's why we weren't meant to glue it when we first assembled that, because we're basically setting that angle. Now what we can also do is we can actually glue this section as well. So just raising it up, try and get it so it's level. And we get a bit of glue on there. And I'll see gluing it to the chassis as well. Now the rod actually goes in quite a bit. Obviously you don't need it to go in that far, but it's not going to hurt either. Now I'm going to glue it to this piece here as well. So that's now all secured in place. Now, they must change the instructions for this, because we have this piece which doesn't look like the piece that they show you, or partway, because here it is, you can see, and it does look like this piece. However, later on you see it's got this little U shape to it, which it doesn't have. So it's just going to sit sort of next to it. So we get that one out, because that is the next thing to do. Again, just going to clean up that edge. Now this is going to go into the slot we have here. Now see, this is flexible and will move out of the way. So I'm just going to check that it does go in the slot. We do have a detail piece that we need to add into this. So that will go in, no problem. I'm going to grab this detail piece. I can't remember what issue this was from. So this detail piece came from issue 101. I believe it's the last piece on that. So just going to clean up that. Ensure that this will fit through this detail piece, which it does. And then you can glue this detail piece and that bracket piece with this piece facing down into the location. Now it might have been easier to do that without that reversing rod in place, but that should go in nicely like that. I'm going to apply some glue from the back. That'll just tack it in place. And I'll just apply a little bit on the front here, and that will secure that fully. And now the glue has dried on that one, we can cut this off as well. And again, we can file that back and dress it. Now, it's important to note that this is loose. If you haven't painted your chassis yet, your instructions basically take this piece out. So this rod that comes on here, this wasn't glued in place, if you remember. And obviously when you do that, this is going to be flapping around loose, so just be wary of that as well. But that is in like so. Now obviously I need to paint that. I need to paint a couple of the bits here as well. And again, as I said, I'll probably do that off camera. So the next time you see this, all the parts that are not currently painted black will be painted black, and I'll just use a brush to paint those in. That way I don't have to take off any of the wheels and the motion brackets, etc. again, which is obviously what they'd like you to do. I'm going to finish off this, I think, looking at the front end here and doing a lot of fiddly work. So we've got several little brackets here that we need to create. And one thing I have missed out, which I don't think I was told to do actually, we've got a detail bracket here, detail plate. And I'm pretty sure that goes on this reversing rod. Okay, no, after doing that one, that's where we put the bracket, the detail plate on. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now, I've noticed the detail bracket on the instructions, but I thought they'd just given us a different set of instructions. Maybe that they didn't bother with this piece anymore, or didn't punch it. But nope, we have a completely separate detail plate, which we can clean up, and then we can stick on to that rectangle area. Again, not sure why this was done left until now, when we could have done it while it was off the engine. I think I'm just going to try and sit it in place, and then just tack it in place with some glue from the top. Like so. And then we can just add a little tiny bit more glue, and that will reinforce that join. Right, so now we can probably flip the engine upside down, because what we're interested in are these sections here. So we're going to be putting some wire in. Now the wires actually need to run, I think it's this 0.5mm wire we're using, and come along to where these rail guards, I think they are. They basically need to come and run along there. Now it might be that I need to make these a bit wider, because I'm sure I measured them when we first done this, and we were told to set them at a certain distance, but these are not going to go there from the looks of it. So I might need to just have a quick bit more of a look at the instructions, because that's obviously going to be too wide, and if you've got this turning, easily knock those and break those off. Okay, so actually what we need to do, we need to put a bend in this, so it's going to come out this way and go this way. So it's going to be a sort of an L shape, with a little flick on the end that it will attach to these stays here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them to do, and they're all obviously individual sizes and lengths, etc. Right, so what we need to do, we've got these little brackets, they're inners and outers. We only need 4 inners, but we need 6 outers. And we've got 1 spare of this one, and we've got 3 spare of the inners. Now the inners, hopefully you can see, they have this little divot in the middle. Now what we need to do, we need to basically shape all these brackets over a millimetre drill bit. Or in my case, I'm going to probably use a bit of the 1mm rod that I still have spare. Now, when I say this is going to be a fiddly thing, yeah, definitely fiddly. So I think what I'm going to try and do is use the 1mm rod like this. Try and get it in the centre, and then effectively just try and bend it over the 1mm rod. Now we will need to flare out the other edges. So I've made it like a little U shape at the minute. Now there is no bend marks in this, so I'm just going to use my pliers. In fact, I'm going to use my rounded pliers, just because I should be able to hold that at the end there. And then with any luck, shape the end of this bracket. So end up with something that looks a little like that. Now I do believe that these will need to sit on top of the inner brackets. So I'm just going to check that for size, because I'm assuming that these are slightly longer, so that when they go on here, they will fit nicely. Yeah, they might work just about. It's a very, very small detail that we need to do for this. So I'm going to shape all of those, and then I'll be back to you. Right, I found an easy way of doing these brackets, and I figured I would share that with you. I don't know how easily you're going to be able to see what I'm doing, but I've got my rounded pliers here, as you can see. If I just pop that in like so, get it so it's centered, just using a pair of tweezers, because this metal is so thin, I can literally just use the tweezers just to shape the end of that. And then we have our bracket. So I'm going to do that for the rest of them, and I'll show you what those look like. Right, so with those all shaped, I've also cut out 4 of the backing pieces as well, or the inners. So we've got 6 outers, 4 inners. So I'm going to start by creating some of the pipe work for this. So we've got 0.5mm wire here, and just going to do a quick bend like so. Now that's going to come out from there, and we need it to line up with this piece here. So that looks like it's going to be about there. So bend that one back, and then we've got that sort of Z shape. Could probably bend it a little bit further. So that looks like it's going to align with those pieces there now, which is perfect. Now, one of these is going to come and stop here. So we're going to bend it about there, I reckon. So now we have that shape. And just going to tip the engine on its side. And then we can see where we need to cut this. Now it does look like they are quite high, so probably about there. I think I might even need to bend this back a little bit further. And it's basically just going to be a bit of trial and error to try and get this to the right sort of shape. So that one's going to go in like that, and it's probably going to be about that sort of height. So I reckon we're going to cut it about there. So now we have that first piece that's going to go up into the hole that we drilled a long time ago, whenever we put those in. And that's going to sit like so. We need to obviously do some brackets, but we need to run the other wire first, because these brackets are going to capture the 2 wires. So that's that one wire. Now, I'm going to do the same sort of thing with this one. We're going to bend that like that. Now, I'm going to take this wire out just because I want to make sure this wire bends at the same point. Then I'm going to take that one, and again, I'm going to work out where we need to bend it, which is probably going to be about there. Do a quick check. That looks good. Just going to temporarily put this one back in place, like so. Because what we want to do is ensure that these line up. So they're going to go something like that. So we want to make sure that has the same sort of height. So that's going to be cut off about there. Like so. So we have those 2 wires. Now what I'm probably going to do, I'll just show you how to do it on this one side, and then I'll do the other side off camera. So as I said, we've got these brackets. So one bracket is just going to literally sit over the top of these here and not require a backing piece. So that will sit like that. And then the others, they need a backing piece and a bracket over the top. And we actually need those in this position here and one in this position here. So I think what I'm going to try and do, don't know how successful this will be, but our plan is to potentially glue those two wires together like that. That way we don't have to worry about messing around with the wire itself and trying to get it into the right position. So I'm not gluing them into the drain cocks, just try and glue them together. Right, so with that glued together, I can hopefully take one of these backing pieces and attach a tiny amount of glue just there, and then hopefully I can pick that up with that piece there. So that's that one. Get another one of these inners. Again, just making sure it's the right way up. So with that little indent. Again, just touch a tiny amount of glue on there. And then I can see from the instructions where it's meant to go. Get it attached like so. Right, so with those two now attached like that, we can look at attaching this to the engine. Now I'm probably just going to clip this one a little bit shorter. So fairly happy with the position of that. Now I haven't glued that in just yet. What I'm going to do is attempt to put one of these curved foot brackets over the top of this front piece. Just like that. And with that in that position, I'm just going to use my tweezers a second just to hold that. Now pop a little tiny bit of glue on there. Once that's tacked in on one side, we can tack it in on the other side. So that's that in place. Now with the other two, we can just take one of these brackets and with any luck do exactly the same thing where we just position that over the top. In fact, what I'll do before I put this in position completely, I haven't glued this section here, so I will just put a bit of glue in there. That'll just make it a little bit more stable. So again, just going to steady this with a pair of tweezers and hopefully get it in roughly the right place. And then just tap it with a little bit of glue and that'll put that in place. Going to do the same thing for the final one on this side. Now also I could dip this in some glue and then attempt to just place it down on top, but I think that's one, going to get very messy, and two, more than likely get it stuck to the tweezers. Whereas at the minute you can sort of position it in place like that. Steady one side with the tweezers, whilst you glue the other side. Put a bit of glue on that one as well. And that is the first one done. So I'm going to repeat that exactly the same on the other side. Right, so that's now both of those done. So both sides done exactly the same way. Got these little brackets in here. I have spaced them out a little bit, as you can probably see. There is actually a set distance, 23 millimeters, I think it was. But I've just moved this front one forward, as you can see, and I sort of pretty much matched them side to side. So that is that. So the last thing to do on this stage is actually strip it all back, get it ready for painting. Obviously, this is majority painted. So what I'm going to do in the week, basically, is just paint up the bits that need a little touch up of black, etc. Just ensure that things are filed and shaped properly, because I know these little motion brackets, they are at the minute catching on the body, so I need to just probably bend those in a little bit, and also file down the ends of these, just so that the body sits down nicely over the top, and you can see where the black is scratched off with the body going over the top of it. Luckily, none of that is actually going to be visible when the body is on top, so it's not going to be a big issue. In fact, actually, I don't think this is going to be seen for most of it, but I will still paint this black. Now, one thing we did have to do is potentially remove this piece. This is the reversing rod, and they said basically support this if you're going to paint it, etc. Because that would be flapping around a little bit and it'd be easy to bend or break that. So that's a word of caution on that one. And basically we needed to mask up the crossheads, mask up this screw, and that's pretty much it, ready for painting. Obviously removing all the wheels and the valve gear, etc. So as I say, I'll paint all the rest of that probably during the week. These bits at the front need to go copper. I will paint those bits black. These bits will stay metal, same with the rods, etc. But yeah, that's all that needs to be done during the week. Something you wouldn't have seen, and I haven't actually shown you, is I've actually glued in the cab. So that's now all fixed into place like that. If you think you've missed a painting video, I painted some of this on a live stream. So I will see if I can dig that out and potentially put it on a card up there somewhere. But that is now all glued in. Still missing the seats. I haven't put the seats in there yet, and I haven't painted the driver or fireman. Now, whether I do that or not, I might actually leave them out and just leave the cab empty. Just because if you put the driver and fireman in there, I think it was going to block quite a bit. So with the amount of detail in that cab, I think I'm going to leave the driver and fireman out for the minute. But I obviously will put the seating in. A couple of bits I need to touch up with a bit of blue. But other than that, that is the cab done, which is great. I did make sure I put the body on the shelf with the front end hanging over. That way I don't break off that hose. But that is all there's to do in that stage, and hopefully next week we will finish this model. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab issue 129 and 130, and I'll give you a quick sneak peek of what we're doing next week. So this is 129, and as you can see, not a great deal given to us. We've got some electrical wire. Now that's for the motor, so we're not going to worry about any of that. But it is all about assembly. As you can see, we've got a painted chassis here now. So again, got some bushes for the electrical part. Not worried about any of that. So we've got the little bracket that's going in here, as you can see. That's the other half of this reversing bracket. touching up the centers of the wheels so the black screw heads don't show. And then it is just a case of assemble all the rods, etc. Put the connector on for the tender, and then that's giving it a satin gloss finish, or clear finish, I'd say. And then it's just about sorting out that for running, and then we'll have that at the end of it. So not a great deal in this issue to finish up there. And then in 130 we have the nameplate, and that's pretty much it. So this one is the very final assembly. So gathering all the parts that we have, getting it all linked up. We've got a couple of little bits still to add to the body, but you can see we are mounting the body temporarily there, and then we are fully mounting the body at this point. Now these are the hoses I said about, which I think, as I say, go to the tender. Putting the tender coupling on, attaching the tender wheels. Got this black sheathing that's going to go over the top of the tender, and then that is it. So it doesn't look like there's going to be a great deal to do to finish off this model. So hopefully you can join me next week for that. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to hit the like button below and give us a massive thumbs up. So I hope you liked the little sneak peek of what's coming next week. And as you saw, it's pretty much final assembly. So finished off with a really fiddly issue today, with all those different pipes, etc. But you can see that it's added that extra little level of detail, and we are pretty much ready for final assembly. We've got the tender there. Not much to do left on that. We've got to put that rear coupling in, as you saw, and the wheels, and I think that's it for the tender. The chassis, I'm going to paint up the bits that need to be painted black, and then that is ready for final assembly as well, along with like the pony truck, bogie truck, and I think that's pretty much it. We've got these bits that go into the crossheads that keep falling off at the minute. Now, we were asked to screw those through the crossheads. Now, I probably won't do that, mainly because the screw needs to come in from the back. It's really difficult to do. What I'm probably going to do is just use a length of wire and glue it either end so that this can still move and pivot on that wire, and obviously move backwards and forwards, but it'll be secured to the crosshead. And I also won't have to file down a screw head or nut to make it look like bolt detail. It'll just look like a rivet or something that goes through there. So that's what I'm going to do on that one. Now, you've seen me assemble all the coupling rods, etc. So what I might end up doing is, once I've painted this black, I might have another look through the instructions, and it might be that I've already put these in place and got that all working. But then I'll leave the final assembly for next week. So if you want to see that, please do remember to hit the subscribe button and ding the bell for notifications. That way you won't miss out on future videos. Now, future videos probably won't be including the Mallard after next week, but there's plenty of other things going on in the workshop, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.